Oh my god, this lighting does absolutely nothing for me. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie and I am in a really bad reading slump. I just haven't really read a book that I feel super connected with, where I'm sucked in and it holds my attention through the rest of the book. And I don't know if maybe this is just reader fatigue, if maybe I just need to relax or maybe put books down, I don't know. But I keep getting super anxious over the fact that I have all of these, I have paper towels. I keep getting really anxious over the fact that I have all of these unread books, and I keep trying to push myself to read all of these unread books. And I think what I need to do is fall back in love with books and with reading and remembering what I loved about books before. I thought to kind of marry that idea with this one I've wanted to do for a while of like, if the books that I loved from my childhood hold up. These are books from my teen years, except this one. This one is a bit later. But I've cited these previously as some of my favorite books to ever be written, and I just kind of want to delve back into them. We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This is the story of a very rich and privileged girl. Her family literally owns a private island, and they go every summer to this private island, except one summer she has a horrible accident and loses basically all of her memory from that summer. She keeps trying to figure out what happened to her because everything suddenly changed. This book never failed to make me cry. To me, it's always just been an in-depth character analysis about privilege, wealth, grief, and family drama. Actually, fun fact, this tattoo that you might have seen in these videos before, you probably won't be able to see what that says. It says "Be Kinder," and I got that tattoo specifically because of this book. Next we have The Great Unknowable End by Catherine Ormsby. This is about two people from Slater, Kansas in 1970s. One of them wants to be an aerospace engineer but has to put that on hold to take care of her family and her younger sister. The other one lives in a cult or commune. He doesn't believe it's a cult, but it is. He dreams of being the artist of this commune and doing what he can to serve them, and they've kind of put him on the back burner, and they meet and they come together, and it's a beautiful coming of age story. Now, I read this when I was like 20, 21, and I just remember connecting with it really well. It was just a book that I needed in the time that I needed it, but it's been long enough since I read it for the first time, first and only time, that I've forgotten basically everything that happens. And the last one that I have planned for this is A History of Glitter and Blood by Hannah Moskowitz. I read this constantly in high school. This is a fantasy about, as you can tell, maybe some fairies. The fairy city has been attacked or like gone to war with like gnomes. It's a whole thing. But 4 fairy citizens decide to stay in the city while everyone else flees, and they end up having to work as prostitutes for these gnomes. And the whole book is written as if one of the characters is writing it as an autobiography or a biography of the war, and there's a lot of weird fucked up shit that happens, and it's a weird book for weird girlies, and I remember really loving it. But I haven't read it since I was like 16, 17. This is the one I'm like, maybe it won't hold up now that I'm an adult with a more developed frontal lobe. That's the only one I'm worried about. I'm 88 pages in, which is not quite halfway. This is the first time in a while that I've felt like truly sucked into a book. Here's the thing, I know I love this book. I love this so truly and deeply, and I know what happened, so there's a bit of a nostalgia aspect to this. It is a bit weird since I've read Family of Liars, which is the prequel to this novel. Family of Liars is set, I believe, in the late 80s, and it features the parents' generation. So the parents of these main characters, all the sisters. And so I'm reading this, and the sisters are just fighting over pearls and what to do with, you know, everyone's assets. And I'm like, you guys did that terrible thing a while ago on the island. And it's just a weird vibe knowing the prequel that this canonically happened to these characters when they were teenagers. This was just really a refresher read, wanting to go through, highlight things, and just remind myself how much I loved reading, because I was starting to forget. Okay, We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. My grown-up, almost 25-year-old thoughts on this, my prefrontal cortex mostly developed thoughts. There were a few lines that made this feel dated, which I've thought that on other rereads, so it's not really a big deal. There were a few lines where I was like, that dialogue doesn't really feel natural anymore. Don't know why. Suddenly it doesn't feel natural, but it doesn't. It almost feels like instead of feeling injured by the book, it feels like I'm revisiting an injury. I'm poking at an old injury and remembering how much I was scarred by it. And this is all positive connotations, positively scarred. I've talked before about how this book has helped me get through some incidences with my family, losing a loved one and the fallout of that, and watching the rest of my family grieve and whatnot. And before, when I was younger, I do think I focused more on the love story and the sensationalism of the tragedy, of the like shock of the twist and all of that. And this time I focused way more on the grief aspects of it. I'm reading this at the same time I also picked up Caitlin Doughty, also known as Ask a Mortician on YouTube, her memoir about being a crematory operator. And that book is really about facing death, like confronting it, and understanding grief, not only your grief, but like watching other people grieve, their family traditions, the cultural traditions of grief. And so reading this at the same time as revisiting We Were Liars, it really made me understand more about grief, and also made me realize that I haven't let myself grieve anything, which is, I mean, something I should probably be talking to a therapist about. But that's why I love books like this that are unapologetically vulnerable. I think these books helped me open up that doorway to letting myself understand grief. Those were my thoughts on We Were Liars. Still love it. Still sad.
Uh-oh.
That's not good. Okay. Well, I got the thunderclap on camera. The Great Unknowable End, my big girl thoughts on this. I actually DNF'd it towards the like 200-ish, 250 page mark. Not super far from the end, but I just got really bored with it and I realized I was slogging through it. I remembered all of the good parts, but also I remembered all of the good parts slightly differently. It's just when I replayed those, my own influence, my own biases shoved onto those memories, and so the good parts that I remembered slowly morphed each time I remembered them into a different scene, slightly different scene. The very first half is super slow. There's a lot of world building, a lot of like tension growing and explaining like what's going on in the city and in these characters' lives. So it wasn't slow in a bad way, it was just kind of slow, and I kept expecting to get to the good parts sooner. So then when I got to the good parts and then they were not what I remembered exactly, I just got bored. As a 24, almost 25-year-old person, they were annoying. Not Stella as much. Stella's whole character is that she's been very much parentified, and so that's her character arc, is being parentified and learning to put herself first rather than putting her ideas and her dreams on the back burner to take care of her little sister and her dad. Galliard, on the other hand, was very annoying, and it was very annoying to be stuck inside of his own head. And that's not a bad thing. This is a YA book. These characters are acting like teenagers, which is very great from a writing standpoint, but as an adult rereading this, I was like, oh, Galliard's kind of a jerk. He's kind of an annoying jerk. I don't want to spend time with him anymore. And he used to be like a book boyfriend for me, you know? A big part of Galliard's story arc is that he really wanted to be resident artist at the commune and make music, but he was passed over for that position, and so he's very upset about that. But as I'm reading it a second time, music is not like entwined into his character. The author keeps saying that music is what keeps him alive and writing music is what keeps him going and whatnot, but there are several different times where they are showing him music from newer, more current artists that he's never heard before, and he just like does not pay attention. That the writing doesn't really match up with what I'm being told. At least to me, it's not believable that music is what makes him Galliard. Like, music is his biggest passion. This whole project was for me to fall back in love with reading, and I have just made my slump worse by reading this, even though I loved it before. So sometimes a reread isn't always the best option. So I have the whole place to myself. I'm not usually one to suntan, I usually burn. So I may move over to a shadier spot, but right now, I'm kind of enjoying myself. It's really coming down. Oof. Here are my big girl, fully developed brain thoughts on A History of Glitter and Blood by Hannah Moskowitz. I would just like to point out that this book was one of my first introductions to more adult themes such as sex work and war. I mean, I'd read like YA books about wars and battles. This was one of the first times it was written about in a more depressing manner. Not realistic, but kind of like the victims of a war rather than the soldiers in it. Also, one of my first introductions to queer media, and one thing that I loved about the book is that sexuality and gender was not an issue. It was one of the first times where two male characters were just in love, and it wasn't a coming out story, and it wasn't a problem, and nobody had an issue with it. Nobody said you can't love another boy. Something that I still enjoy about this book is how love is described. This is a book that is very sexual and romantic, but in an unsettling sense. And the biggest theme is that this group of like 10 characters all love each other. 10 is too much. It's like 6. It's like 6 or 7 characters. They all love each other, but in like varying degrees of love and intimacy. There is platonic love, romantic love, sexual love. Ooh, that was lightning. Platonic, romantic, sexual love, and something I've noticed since moving to Tennessee is that thunder is louder here. Don't know why that happens. And each character and their relationships with each other are some varying degree of either one or all 3 of those. And, you know, I read this in high school when being in love with someone felt so far out of reach that having a book describing it in such a raw and interesting way that was different from any general romance that I've ever seen before, that is why I loved this book so much as a kid. There are some things I question now, and I don't think I even have answers. That's just stuff that I'm like, what is the point of this? Where are we going with this? For example, what even is the point of them being prostitutes in this war? It shows sex work in a very weird sense, especially now that I've grown up and learned a lot more about sex trafficking and the like realities of what sex work is. Beckon is one of our only female characters, and her relationship with sex work is so much nicer. She has one client who falls in love with her. She doesn't go through the same abuse that her friends do, who are both male sex workers. And I think something about that is being said. I just don't know what is being said. In this world, all fairy females are infertile. And that is a big thing for Beckon, like calling them empty is a slur. And Beckon keeps talking about how it should be okay that sometimes she wants a baby even though she doesn't really want a baby, and it's like this kind of thing. And I just wonder what the author is trying to say about that and about the link between femininity and fertility and stuff like that. Like I said, I don't have answers, and I don't even know if I would want to like critically think about this and linger on those questions for very long. But it's just one of those things that I didn't question as a child, and now I'm thinking like, what's the point of this? What's the point of these gnomes who consume the fairies also consuming them sexually and literally? It's like a whole thing. I was sitting here trying to think about why I clung so hard to this book as a child, and this is gonna get a little TMI. The last time I read this, how do I put this? I had not been with anyone biblically, if you know what I mean. And I don't know, as a teenager, I think this is something very relatable to teenagers, especially ones who are a bit geeky, a bit socially awkward, a bit afraid of social interactions. The idea of being in love and being in a sexual relationship was something that I simultaneously desired and I wanted so badly. I wanted to have somebody desire me, but I was also so scared of it and so scared of being like fully intimate or like vulnerable with somebody else. And I think that's very relatable as a teenager, as somebody like learning about their body, about other people's bodies. And it's something that this book, reading it and reading how sex is something that is so both lovely and intimate and safe, but also very dangerous and thrilling, and literally dangerous. Like they have sex with these creatures that will eat them eventually. Like that kind of reinforced the feelings that I had about it. But now, as an adult in a committed relationship who's experienced more things and experienced love, I feel less connected to it. It feels less relatable. I'm sitting here reading it and saying, like, wow, sex really shouldn't feel like that for you. And you guys are in very toxic relationships and you're being abused. Those are just my thoughts on it. And I guess the difference on why I loved it so much as a teenager, where it really put into words the tumultuous relationship I had with my own body and with my own desires. But other than that, like, as I've grown up and I've grown out of those phases, I don't see it as relatable anymore. And I think that's good. That's a net good. But yeah, good and bad things rereading this book. But I do think it's been bumped down in my favorites list. It's just something that I loved when I needed to love it. And now I don't need to love it. And I have other books that I feel speak to me more. That was my experiment, rereading books that I had loved in my high school days and seeing if I still enjoy them. I don't. Not as much. I remember the nostalgia and enjoy the nostalgic feelings I have for them, but I think I've grown, and I think I've grown in my reading and writing styles. I think I've grown in my relationship to romance and sexual intimacy and other intimacies, and I think I've grown in my grief, because a lot of these books are actually about grief. But yeah, thank you for coming along this journey. This is my first foray into reading vlogs, and I hope I did it in an interesting way. Okay, that's gonna be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess that's it. Bye!